All right. Maker's Mark Cellar Age is back for 2025. First introduced in 2023, Maker's Mark Cellar Age has been the showcase for makers to show us exactly how they can craft a high-aged bourbon without breaking the rules of their taste vision. Yeah, they say that a lot. Basically, it's the art of creating a high-aged bourbon without all that, icky oak. Will the 2025 be the best to date? Come right back. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C, and welcome back to the Mash and Drum. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and again, keep all those comments and all the great feedback pouring in. Love hearing from you guys. Okay, so as I mentioned, Cellar Aged was all about Maker's Mark aging their whiskey for over a decade, which is something they never did prior to 2023. Or at least it was something that they did, but we never got to try it. But utilizing their famed limestone cellar, makers found their way of doing it by maturing cellar age for some of its life in a traditional rickhouse, and then the rest of their time in their limestone cellar to control just how much oak gets imparted into their bourbon while still keeping the flavors distinctly Maker's Mark. Now, the 2025 release is a blend of 11, 13, and 14-year-old bourbons from Maker's Mark. The blend is 74% 11-year, 10% 13, and 16% 14-year-old bourbon. It's bottled at 112.9 proof with a retail price of $170. So what's nice about these cellar age releases each year is that they seem to be getting older rather than staying stagnant, which is kind of nice. Now we're going to compare this to the 2023 edition, which I still think between last year's and the 23 I loved way more than the 24. The 24 had a weird finish to me, just didn't agree with my palate. It almost got too Maker's Markian, as I like to say. But the 23 to me, I still think was the best out of the two. That's from my palate. So if this one somehow beats 23, maybe we'll have a new best of cellar aged here. So let's dive in. Here we go. I still get that Maker's Red Winter Wheat, but I also get a lot of caramel apple here, which is kind of nice. Yeah, it's hard to get beyond that caramel apple peel. It's pretty strong for me. I think you can make a case for a little milk chocolate here in between. The oak is definitely present. So I know Maker's Mark tries to avoid putting too much oak into their whiskey by using this process where it's half in the rickhouse and half in the limestone cellar. But you do get some nice oak here. This almost comes off like a toasted bourbon to me. I feel like I'm getting s'mores in here, like chocolate, marshmallow. But that caramel apple note is still pretty strong. It actually smells pretty good. I'm not really getting kind of like that weird Maker's Mark note, that sour note that I don't like. Yeah, but right now I'm actually digging this nose. All right, but what really matters is the palate. So let's see what it tastes like. Here we go. Okay. Oh, I dig that one. I'm not getting any of those weird sour notes that I got on the 24 on this one, at least the first sip. Let me go back in for this one. I like this because it's very baking spice heavy. It's extremely cinnamon, nutmeg. There's some black pepper there. I'm digging the flavor profile. It's a spicier Maker's Mark profile. And when I say spicier, I don't mean like, red pepper spice. I mean like baking spice. It's also a lot darker than I expected coming off the nose. When you get caramel apple, you think it's gonna be a little bit brighter, but it's actually a rich profile here. So third sip here, there's something a little tart coming to the forefront, whether it's like a pomegranate type of note, but there's something a little bit tart right on the mid palate mixed with the chocolate, the caramel apple, some of that oak, and again, a lot of that baking spice. Like the dark flavor here I'm getting on the finish, it's borderline coffee bean a little bit. I've never really gotten that with Makers unless it was, one of the private selects with all the different stave finishes, like the mocha, where it actually does taste a little coffee-ish. This, however, is bringing some of that dark, rich flavor to the game here. So that sip, everything started to flatten out a bit. The palate just starts to flatten out just a touch. The flavors are all there, but they're not as in your face. And I think, again, that probably plays to what Maker's Mark wants, what Maker's Mark likes. The oak, the caramel apple, that baking spice heaviness, and that slight hint of almost a coffee bean on the very finish of this, I think is really what makes it. I'm not getting that weird, funky cardboard, that wet cardboard aftertaste that I got on the 2024. I'll never forget. I mean, you guys let me know down in the comments, did you like 2023 or 2024 if you got both of these the last couple of years? I feel like that weird limestone cardboard note right at the end, it's there, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it was in the 2024 to me. This, I think, is a lot better. I think the sweetness takes over a little bit more. I think this is a very well blended Maker's Mark product, especially for the age. Maybe the older ages help when blending into this. So let me try it against 2023, which has been my favorite for the last 2 years. All right, so 2023 had mostly 12 year in it and some 11 year. And this one came in at, I believe it was 112 proof. Oh no, actually 115.7 proof. So let's get this one poured. All right, let's compare noses and see how this stacks up. So interestingly enough, the nose on the 2023 still comes off like a, I don't know, the 23 version had this dusty bourbon funk to it, like something that was out of the 80s or the 90s, that I still think is holding true in this bottle, in this blend. I'm not sure why it didn't come through in the 24. I feel like it's coming through slightly in the 25, but the 25 I think is making more of a play for the oak, the baking spice, and a little bit of those darker flavors that I think you expect from an older whiskey. Whereas the 23 is giving that, but it's also giving kind of a nostalgic type of flavor to it, you know, especially on the nose. They both have baking spice, but I do think the 25 is coming off just a twinge darker than the 23. So let me try the 23. The 23 is super sweet. It's borderline butterscotchy, which is my favorite note in bourbon. And I do think that it's got, again, there's a sweetness factor there, and it's a little bit brighter, but I think the buttery nature of it is what helps kind of push it along for me as far as being my favorite of the last couple of years. All right, let's go right to the 25. The 25 has everything the 23 has, but it's just like they dumped a bunch of brown sugar in it. That's what it tastes like. It's darker. It's a little bit, I actually would make the argument, I think 25 is a little bit more viscous than 23. The brown sugar, again, it does still have that bitterness. I don't think that will ever go away from Maker's Mark. That's just the note you get, especially on the finish of some of these. That slight bitterness note that's on the back end. I mean, I even get it with the 23. It's just really, really faint for me. I'm just kind of sensitive to it. But the 25, I don't really think has it. The 24 had a lot of it. I don't even know what I did with the 24. I just kind of put that bottle aside. I don't know what I did with that one. But the 25 just gives you a darker and more viscous profile, which I really dig. And I'm telling you, the more I sip this, that borderline coffee bean note is starting to come to the forefront a little bit more. If you have a bitter finish, but it comes by the way of coffee bean, I don't mind that. I can deal with that. It's when it's sour, wet cardboard that ruins it. But I like the dark flavors in this 2025. I'm not really sure which one I like more. I think they both offer different profiles. I think the nostalgia and the butterscotch lover in me still leans towards the 23. However, this 25 I think is a big step above the 24, and I dig this one. I like the darker flavors in here. If you could reach this type of flavor for Maker's Mark without using those staves, I think you're onto something. So, final breakdown time. All right, final breakdown on the Maker's Mark Cellar Age for 2025. Price for this one, $170. I think there's a little bit of an uptick in price there. Resale market value, I've seen these as high as $250. Those will probably come down a little bit. And as far as availability, these are obviously going to be limited. When it comes to value, I don't really know where to put this because here's the problem. Maker's Mark every now and again has a really good release, especially some of those private selects that are sub $100. Like the Maker's 46 Cask Strength is probably my favorite bourbon from Maker's Mark, and you know, you get that for what, 65, 70 bucks. So 170, and I realize there's a lot of aged whiskeys that go into this, but given Maker's Mark is one of the biggest brands on the planet, I would have liked to see this at 150, 140. I know it's their more high-end limited offering, and I do get that, but I still think given the price points, I think 170 for this one for Makers is just a little bit too high, so I'll just give this a below average. As far as most I'd pay, I'm not a big Maker's Mark fan. I do enjoy this, but I still wouldn't go higher than retail for it. Maybe Maker's Mark fans, if you're one of them and you love Maker's Mark, maybe you don't overpay for this just because it is a little bit darker than the past Cellar Age releases. Well, as far as alternatives go, this is where this bottle kind of gets murky for me because, like I mentioned before, you have the Maker's 46, you have the Private Selects, you have the Lost Stave series, the Lost Recipe series, I should say, that have been really good. That Mocha Stave Lost Recipe release, I think, is one of the best things they've released. But when you have those really good releases for sub $100, those are really going to be the best alternatives for you. It's the other Maker's Mark products that I think could get close to this for the money. And that's where it comes into Maker's Mark kind of being a victim of their own product lines, much like Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, that have such expansive product lines with really good value bourbons. So when you bring something out, it really needs to hit a home run. As far as recommendations, is it a skip, a try before you buy, a buy, or buy back it up? This is tough because I do like it. Do I like it as much as 2023? I think there's times where I could enjoy this more than 2023 version because of those darker flavors. So I think if you're a Maker's Mark fan, I think this is a definite buy. I think if you're not, then this will lean more into the try before you buy, just because I do think for the money, Maker's Mark has other things on the shelf. I'm not going to say that will bring you the same flavors, but that can get close to this. And I think that's where it gets a little bit murky. But as far as a release and Maker's Mark showing what they can do as far as a higher aged whiskey, I think this is where I like to see it going. This is just a really good high-aged Maker's Mark bourbon, which is very impressive, much more so than the 2024. And if you like darker flavors, you're probably going to like this more than the 2023. So with that, I'll say, for me personally, I think it's a try before you buy. But I think Maker's Mark fans, this is going to be a definite pickup for you because I think it really does show what Maker's Mark can do at a higher age without all that weird bitterness that's on the back end. All right, guys, well, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Maker's Mark Cellar Age 2025. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button, and if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments if you are a super Maker's Mark fanboy, fangirl, whatever you want to call it. You were waiting for this one. What do you think? Do you like this more than the 24, the 23? Do you still like the 23? Is the 23 still the GOAT? I think for me it still might be, but I could see diving into this one a little bit more because of those darker flavors. Let me know down in the comments, and as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers. I'll see you next time right here on the Mash and Drum. I think we have the Remus 9 up next, so see you then. Cheers.